My name is Amanda Keller, and I'm 28 years old. If you ask my friends to describe me, they'd probably say I'm careful, maybe even cautious. I work as a software developer, make a decent salary, but I've always believed in saving for the future instead of chasing appearances. I drive a 2012 Toyota Corolla with a few scratches on the side, but a solid engine. I cook most of my meals at home, and if I go out, I'd rather spend the evening hiking under the stars than ordering overpriced cocktails in a rooftop bar. My friends joke about my meal prep containers, and my coworkers tease me for bringing the same brown rice and chicken for lunch. But honestly, I don't mind. I was saving for something bigger: a home, independence, a life built on stability, not impulse. When I first met Ethan, he told me that he admired that about me. We met at a friend's barbecue, and while everyone else was showing off new gadgets and expensive watches, Ethan leaned close and said, "You're different. I like that." At the time, it felt genuine. For the first year, we were happy. He laughed when I used coupons at the grocery store, and he teased me about my grandma car, but it was affectionate. I thought he understood me, or at least accepted me. But somewhere around the year-and-a-half mark, things shifted. It was small at first. One Tuesday evening, we went to Olive Garden for dinner. Nothing fancy, just pasta and breadsticks, the kind of night I liked because we could actually talk. But Ethan spent most of the meal scrolling Instagram, showing me pictures of his friends out at expensive restaurants. "Look at this," he said, pushing his phone toward me. His coworker and her boyfriend were dressed up at a sleek steakhouse downtown, the kind where parking costs as much as the meal. "See that bottle of wine? That's like $200. Looks nice, huh?" I smiled politely. "Sure, but I kind of like this. Just us. No crowd, no noise." He gave me a look I couldn't quite name, then went back to his phone. That look became familiar over the next few months. Every time we hung out with friends, I noticed how quiet he'd get on the drive home. I'd try to fill the silence, tell him about my day, but his mind was elsewhere. One night, after his friend's birthday party, he finally snapped. We had just pulled up outside his apartment when he turned to me and said flatly, "Your car is embarrassing." I blinked, stunned. "Excuse me?" Everyone else pulled up in actual cars, Amanda. Lisa's boyfriend has an Audi. Matt drives a Tesla, and we roll up in this. I looked around my car, the faded paint, the worn but clean seats. It was reliable, paid off, mine. "What's wrong with it?" I asked softly. "It's 10 years old, Amanda. It looks like something a college kid drives." "It runs perfectly. No car payments. Isn't that a good thing?" He sighed, exasperated, like I was missing the point. "Never mind. You wouldn't understand." That night, lying awake in my small studio apartment, his words echoed in my head. Embarrassing. It was the first time I wondered if he wasn't just teasing me, if he really did look at me with disappointment. I tried to shake it off, but something had changed. The warmth in his jokes had been replaced with resentment, and for the first time, I felt ashamed of the very choices that had once made me proud. And deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. The weeks after that night were different. Subtle, but undeniable. Every time we went out with friends, Ethan would go quiet in the car ride home, his jaw tight, his silence heavy. At first, I thought maybe he was tired, maybe stressed from work. But then came the comments. "Why don't you ever want to go somewhere nice, Amanda? Do you realize how it looks when everyone else shows up dressed to the nines and you?" He'd let the sentence trail off, his eyes flicking to my thrifted dress. I tried to laugh it off, but each word chipped away at me. The breaking point came one evening in spring. He brought up a weekend getaway his friends were planning. Miami, beachfront hotel, bottle service, the whole package. "It's Katie's birthday," he said. "We're all going. You should come." I frowned. "How much is it?" He shrugged, like it didn't matter. "Hotel's around $400 a night, plus flights, food, drinks, maybe $3,000 altogether. But come on, Amanda, you make good money." I stared at him. "Ethan, that's 3 months of rent. We could take an entire vacation for that amount." He scoffed. "It's not about us. It's about showing up for my friends." "I get that," I said, keeping my voice calm. "But it doesn't make sense to spend that much for 3 days. His face hardened. "You can't afford it, can you?" "I can. I just don't want to throw away money on something so temporary." He stared at me like I was speaking another language. "You make 75 grand a year, Amanda. Why are you acting like you're broke?" I felt my chest tighten. "It's not about being broke. It's about priorities." He leaned back, arms crossed. "And apparently your priorities don't include making me happy." That line, the bitterness in it, lodged itself deep inside me. I sat there frozen, trying to think of a response, but all I felt was the quiet realization that no matter what I said, it wouldn't be enough. A few weeks later, the signs became impossible to ignore. It started small: a new watch on his wrist, shoes I knew I hadn't seen before, designer sunglasses casually left on his kitchen counter. "Where did all this come from?" I asked one night, trying to keep my voice light. He smirked, sliding the watch around his wrist. "Does it matter?" "Yes," I said firmly. "Ethan, that's $1,000 watch. You've never spent money like that before." He looked at me then, not guilty, not apologetic, almost smug. "At least someone thinks I deserve nice things." My stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" Her name spilled out of his mouth like it was nothing. Vanessa, older, successful. She appreciated him. She bought him things. She took him to places I apparently couldn't. "She treats me like I'm worth something, Amanda. Do you?" The words hit harder than I expected. My voice shook when I asked, "So, how long?" He shrugged. "A couple months. It's not like that, though. She just gets it." "Gets what? That you like being bought? That I'm not embarrassed by wanting more?" I stood there, staring at the man I thought I knew, realizing that the slow erosion of us hadn't been my imagination. It had been deliberate. And then, with a cold little laugh, he said it. "You're too cheap to deserve me." I don't remember leaving his apartment. I don't remember driving home. I only remember sitting on my bed, the city lights flickering through my blinds, and thinking, cheap. That's what he saw when he looked at me. Not smart, not disciplined, not building a future, just cheap. For the first time in 2 years, I didn't cry over him. I just felt hollow. But somewhere inside that emptiness, a tiny spark lit up. Not anger, not revenge, just the beginning of clarity. The next morning, I woke up to silence. No text from Ethan, no good morning calls, no apology, just nothing. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the chipped paint on the wall, trying to figure out what I was supposed to feel. Sad? Angry? Betrayed? Instead, all I felt was relief. Relief that I didn't have to defend every choice I made. Relief that I could eat leftovers without judgment. Relief that I didn't have to measure my worth against someone's Instagram feed anymore. Still, his words echoed in my head. "You're too cheap to deserve me." Cheap. Not careful. Not smart. Not disciplined. Cheap. It stung, but it also gave me clarity. Because deep down, I knew something Ethan never understood. I wasn't frugal because I couldn't afford things. I was frugal because I was building something. That night, instead of stalking his social media or crying into a pillow, I opened my laptop. For months, I had toyed with the idea of investing in real estate. I'd bookmarked articles, saved listings, even followed a few financial blogs. But with Ethan constantly complaining, I never had the mental space to pursue it. Now, the silence was mine. I dove in, researching duplexes, learning about FHA loans, reading forums where people shared their experiences with tenants and mortgages. I took notes like I was studying for an exam. And the more I read, the lighter I felt. It was like my brain had been waiting for this, a chance to use my discipline for something that mattered. Not to impress Ethan, not to prove myself, just to build my life. When mutual friends asked why Ethan and I broke up, I kept it simple. We wanted different things. No one pressed. Maybe they already knew. Weeks turned into months. I worked late nights, packed my own lunches, and every extra dollar went into savings. I wasn't just saving for the future anymore. I was actively shaping it. And the strangest part, I felt free. Free from Ethan's criticism. Free from the constant pressure to keep up with other people's lifestyles. Free to imagine a future that was mine alone. One evening, as I scrolled through real estate listings, I paused on a picture of a small duplex in an up-and-coming neighborhood. 2 units, well-maintained, nothing flashy, but the numbers worked. The rent from one side would cover most of the mortgage. I ran the calculations 3 times just to be sure. Each time, the numbers lined up. My heart pounded. Could I actually do this? Ethan's voice echoed in my mind, mocking, dismissive, too cheap to deserve me. But this time I smiled, because maybe he was right. I didn't deserve him. I deserved something better. And maybe this duplex was the start of it? I clicked request information on the listing, my hand trembling, but steady enough to know one thing for certain. I was done shrinking myself to fit into someone else's idea of worth. From now on, I'd build my own. Closing day. I can still remember the smell of fresh paint and the nervous sweat on my palms as I signed the final papers. The duplex wasn't glamorous. The siding was a little faded, the kitchen tiles outdated, and the backyard needed serious landscaping. But it was mine. When the realtor handed me the keys, I stood in the empty living room, staring at the sunlight filtering through dusty blinds, and for the first time in years, I felt something Ethan had never given me: pride. I wasn't just renting a space, I was building one, brick by brick, paycheck by paycheck. I moved into one unit that weekend, surrounded by cardboard boxes and secondhand furniture. The other unit I rented out to a young couple just starting out. They reminded me of who I used to be with Ethan, hopeful, excited, full of dreams. Except this time, I was the one providing the roof over their heads. My friends noticed the change in me. "You look lighter," one of them said over dinner. And they were right. The constant weight of Ethan's criticism had lifted. For once, I could drive my old Corolla without feeling embarrassed. I could order the cheapest dish on the menu and not second-guess it. Life felt quiet, but in that quiet, I found peace. And then came Daniel. He was the brother of my tenants, helping them carry boxes up the stairs on move-in day. I noticed him because he kept cracking jokes while juggling furniture, his laughter making the whole process easier. When I offered them lemonade afterward, Daniel lingered. "You're the landlord?" he asked, a hint of surprise in his voice. "Yeah," I smiled nervously. "First property, still figuring things out." "Well," he grinned, "from the way my sister talks, you're already a better landlord than her last one. That guy charged her for fixing a broken sink." We laughed, and something in me softened. Daniel was different from Ethan. He wasn't flashy. He didn't drop hints about expensive restaurants or compare me to anyone else. He was a teacher, drove a 10-year-old Civic, and thought coupons were genius. Our conversations flowed easily, first about the duplex, then about books, then about life. Before I knew it, I was agreeing to grab coffee with him. On our third date, he insisted on paying. When I teased him about it, he said, "I don't like feeling like I owe anyone." I blinked, then smiled. "You don't owe me anything." "I know," he replied softly, "but I want to contribute." The words hit me harder than I expected. After years of Ethan's resentment, here was someone who saw contribution as love, not weakness. For the first time, I began to imagine a future that wasn't lonely. But just when I was settling into this new rhythm, work, managing tenants, quiet evenings with Daniel, the past came knocking. Literally. It started small. A friend mentioning that Ethan had asked about me. A mutual acquaintance saying he'd been checking in on what I was up to. I brushed it off. Until one evening, I came home from work and found an envelope tucked into my mailbox. No stamp, no address, just my name. Inside, a handwritten note in Ethan's familiar scrawl. "I heard about the house. Impressive. We should catch up." I froze, the paper trembling in my hand. After all this time, after all the words he'd thrown at me, he wanted to catch up? I crumpled the note, tossed it into the trash, and told myself it was over. But deep down I knew Ethan wasn't gone, not yet. It happened on a Tuesday evening. I pulled into the driveway, groceries in the passenger seat, humming along to some song on the radio. At first I didn't notice the car parked near the curb, until I saw him. Ethan. He was sitting on my front steps like he belonged there, his shoulders hunched, eyes shadowed with exhaustion. He looked smaller somehow. The arrogant spark I once knew replaced by something brittle. "Amanda," he said, standing as I approached. "Nice place." I froze, keys tight in my grip. "What are you doing here?" He glanced around the duplex, the little garden I'd planted, the fresh coat of paint on the mailbox. "I heard you bought it. Looks really good. Very you." I didn't respond. I just unlocked the door, half expecting him to take the hint. But Ethan wasn't here for hints. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice trembling in a way I had never heard before. I turned slowly. "About what? You made your choice." His jaw tightened, but then his shoulders sagged. "Vanessa. She wasn't who I thought she was. She lied. About her money, her connections, everything. When it all collapsed, she left me with nothing. Debts, bills, His voice cracked. "I made a mistake, Amanda." The words hung in the air between us. I studied him. The designer jacket that looked worn at the seams, the expensive watch no longer gleaming, his face lined with a desperation that money couldn't hide. "You want me to feel sorry for you?" I asked quietly. "No, I wanted you to know that I get it now. I get what you were trying to do. Building something, saving, being responsible. You were right." He swallowed hard, and I was wrong. Something inside me ached. Not because I wanted him back, but because a part of me, had once begged for these words, and now standing in front of him, they felt hollow. Too late. "What do you want, Ethan?" I asked. He hesitated, then whispered, "Another chance." I almost laughed. "Another chance? After everything?" I was stupid. I was chasing things that didn't matter. You matter. You always did. His voice broke, and for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. Not the fear of losing money, but the fear of being alone. I shook my head. "No, Ethan, you didn't lose me because you made a mistake. You lost me because you never valued me to begin with." At that moment, headlights swept across the driveway. Daniel's car. He stepped out, smiling as he saw me, until he noticed Ethan. His brows furrowed, protective instinct kicking in. "Everything okay?" I took a deep breath. "Yeah, perfectly fine." Turning to Ethan, I gestured. "This is Daniel, my boyfriend." Daniel walked up, setting his arm gently across my shoulders, a silent gesture of solidarity. "Nice to meet you," he said coolly. Ethan's face fell. The realization washed over him in waves, that I had moved on, that someone else stood where he once did, and that this time I wasn't shrinking. "You replaced me?" he spat, his voice sharp. "No," I replied evenly. "I outgrew you." For a moment, silence. The kind of silence where truth settles like dust after a storm. Daniel squeezed my shoulder. "Dinner's waiting inside." I nodded, then looked at Ethan one last time. "You wanted more, Ethan, and you got it. Just not the way you thought." He opened his mouth to argue, but nothing came. His shoulders slumped. Without another word, he walked back to his car. The taillights disappeared into the night, leaving only the sound of crickets and the faint hum of the street lamp. I stood there for a moment, my heart pounding. Not from fear, but from release. For the first time, I wasn't the one left standing empty. 8 months have passed since that night on my front steps. 8 months since Ethan stood there, broken, asking for something I no longer wanted to give. In those months, my life hasn't turned into a fairy tale. It's better. Because it's real. Daniel and I got engaged in December. The proposal wasn't a grand spectacle, no rooftop champagne or skywriting. Just the two of us, in my kitchen, cooking pasta together. He pulled out a simple ring and said, "I don't need fancy, I just need us." I cried, not because of the size of the ring, but because of what it meant. Commitment, partnership, love that wasn't measured in dollars. We're planning a small wedding next fall. Nothing flashy, just close friends, family, and a garden strung with fairy lights, and every detail feels like ours. Meanwhile, Ethan's name still floats around in whispers. A mutual friend mentioned he moved back in with roommates after Vanessa's debts swallowed him whole. The luxury cars? Leased. The jewelry? Pawned. The lifestyle? All smoke and mirrors. Once hearing that would have satisfied me. Karma, neat and perfect. But when I picture him now, I don't feel triumph. Just distance, like a chapter I read long ago. Sometimes I wonder if he ever truly understood why we failed, if he realized that the very things he mocked, my frugality, my discipline, my cheapness, were the foundation of everything he claimed to want. But mostly I don't wonder at all, because I'm too busy living. On weekends, Daniel and I work in the garden outside the duplex. Tomatoes, peppers, herbs. Nothing expensive, just little things that remind us of growth. We laugh over crooked carrots, share coffee on the porch, and dream about the next property we'll invest in together. Yes, we're already planning the next step. A small apartment building that needs work but has potential. Daniel says he's excited to learn about being a landlord. I tell him I'm excited to build something side by side. Sometimes, when the sun sets just right, I stand in the yard and breathe in the scent of soil and basil, and I realize something simple but profound. Ethan was right. I was too cheap to waste my time, my heart, and my future on someone who couldn't see my worth.